Good morning, students. In the last class, we have finished the chapter Current Electricity. That was the third chapter. Then after electricity, we have two chapters on magnetism. Sir will be dealing with those chapters. And then we come to the now sixth chapter in the syllabus. Name of the chapter is Electromagnetic Induction. The syllabus, if you observe, you will see that it requires 7 hours duration and it will give you 6 marks in the examination. 7 hours, 6 marks. So we shall now begin with the sixth chapter, that is electromagnetic induction. So electromagnetic, two words are there, electricity and magnetism. First 3 chapters of electricity, then again 2 chapters of magnetism, and then you have this chapter, a relation between electricity and magnetism. So actually there is a relation between the two branches of physics. One is electricity and another is magnetism. Now, what is the relation and when did it start? So actually the interrelation started with Oersted's experiments long back in the 19th century. And you are knowing the experiment of Oersted. He passed current through a wire and he found that if you have a plane perpendicular to the wire, you will have a magnetic field rise around this conductor. What is the meaning? So whenever there is a current, it produces a magnetic field around it. If you have static charges, as you have seen in the first chapter, charges are at rest, then there will be only an electric field around it. But when the charges begin to move, that is moving charges. What is the meaning of moving charges? Whenever the charges move, we call it as current. So moving charges is nothing but your current. So current will produce a magnetic field. Whenever current passes through a conductor, there is a magnetic field around it in addition to the electric field. So this experiment of Oersted led to this conclusion: a current is able to produce the magnetic field. Then the search began on the converse effect of this. What is the converse effect? Whether the moving magnets can produce the electric field, that is, they can produce the current. So can the moving magnets produce current? And then this experiment was first conducted by two physicists. Names were Faraday and Henry. So the chapter begins with the experiments conducted by Faraday and Henry. These are very important experiments, and these experiments lead you to the definition of electromagnetic induction. That is, from the moving magnets you are able to produce current. So let us now see what are these two experiments. Two such experiments we shall study. First one I have written very clear here, coil magnet experiment. And the second one is coil experiment. So what is the coil magnet experiment? You can see the figure for that. This is a coil carrying a current. So we have a magnet here, north pole and south pole. Now this coil is connected to a galvanometer, G. This is a magnet placed near to the coil. So this is because we are using coil and magnet, we call this experiment as coil magnet experiment. Now what do you see in the figure? So in the chapters current electricity, I told you whenever you want current in a circuit, you need a battery over there, you need a cell, that is a source of current. But if you see this figure, this coil is connected only to a galvanometer. It is nowhere there is a cell in the circuit. So there is no chance of current from the cell. Right? Now in this coil, how to generate the current? By moving the magnet. Okay. So what did Faraday and Henry do? They took this magnet. Magnet has got two poles. It is a dipole, north pole and south pole, N and S. So these are the magnetic field lines around the coil and the magnet. Now what was done is the north pole of the magnet was moved towards the coil. So when they moved the north pole of the magnet towards the coil, they found that there is a deflection in the galvanometer. The deflection in the galvanometer shows that current is flowing through the coil for a moment. So this current was called as induced current. So nowhere there is a cell, only because we have moved the north pole towards the coil, a current is induced in the coil and it is indicated by the deflection of the galvanometer. The galvanometer just detects the presence of current by deflection. Now it was done in the reverse way. The north pole of the magnet was suddenly taken away from the coil. And then also you will find that there is a deflection in the galvanometer, but now it is in the opposite direction. The meaning is once again current is induced in the coil, and if the magnet is at rest, then there is no deflection. So if there is motion of the magnet either towards the coil or away from the coil, current is induced in the coil. Then the same experiment can be done with the help of south pole also. South pole is first taken towards the coil. You will see that there is deflection on one side. Then the south pole is taken away from the coil. Then again there is deflection on the other side. So whether it is north pole or south pole, its motion will induce current in the coil. Now, how long the deflection lasts? The deflection will be there as long as there is motion. If the magnet does not move, then there is no deflection. And if the magnet is moved faster, either towards the coil or away from the coil, if the magnet is moved faster, then deflection also will increase. So deflection is proportional to the velocity of the magnet. So this was the experiment called as coil and magnet experiment. So this clearly shows that whenever there is motion between the coil and the magnet, there is a induced current. It can also be reversed like this. You keep the magnet at rest and just you move the coil. You can move the coil either towards the magnet or you can take the coil away from the magnet. So then also there is current induced in the coil. So what is required for the induced current? There should be a relative motion between the two. There is a relative, one should be at rest, another should be in motion. So whenever there is a relative motion between the coil and the magnet, then current is induced in the coil. So this was the first experiment, and this experiment was called as coil magnet experiment. Then they conducted a similar experiment. Slight change is there. Now it is called as coil experiment. So here we are using two coils. One coil is called as C1, another coil is called as C2. One coil is connected to a galvanometer and the other coil is connected to a battery. So how this experiment was conducted? Now, when the coil C2 is taken towards C1, then the galvanometer shows deflection on one side. And if the coil C2 is taken away from C1, then the galvanometer shows deflection on the other side. The meaning is current is induced in the coil C1 because of the motion of coil C2. If the coil is moved faster, then deflection will be more, as in the previous case. The same experiment can be done in the reverse way. You keep the coil C2 at rest and just you move the coil C1 towards C2, either towards C2 or away from C2. Even if coil C1 is moved towards or away from C2, then also current is induced in it. So what is required again, once again? Relative motion between the two coils will induce current in it. So this phenomenon, these experiments lead to a very important conclusion. What is that conclusion? So whenever there is relative motion between them, what changes? There is change in magnetic flux. You have seen electric flux. Electric field is represented by electric lines of force. Similarly, a magnetic field is represented by magnetic lines of force. So these magnetic lines of force passing normally to an area, we call it as magnetic flux. So whenever there is relative motion, what changes is, the basic cause is there is change in magnetic flux. And whenever there is change in the magnetic flux, magnetic field lines, then what is induced in the circuit? An EMF. EMF is voltage. A voltage and a current is induced in the circuit. So this phenomenon is called as electromagnetic induction. And that is the name of the chapter itself, electromagnetic induction. So what is the definition of electromagnetic induction? That is the result of Faraday's and Henry's experiment is nothing but your electromagnetic induction. So what is the definition of electromagnetic induction? Whenever there is change in magnetic flux linked with the circuit, what is induced in the circuit? An EMF and current is induced in the circuit. And this phenomenon we call it as electromagnetic induction. So these experiments conducted by Faraday and Henry, they can be asked for 3 marks each. Either this may be asked or this may be asked. One more experiment is there in your textbook. That is, instead of moving the coil C2, if you connect a tab key over here, if you put the current on and off, then EMF and current is induced in the coil. It is not necessary that you have to move the coil C2. You can just put this current on and off, close the key and open the key. Then also flux changes and then there is induced EMF. So what is required for induced current and EMF? There should be a change in magnetic flux. Whenever there is change in magnetic flux, and EMF and current is induced in the circuit, and this phenomenon we call it as electromagnetic induction. So this conclusion comes from Faraday and Henry's experiments. So these experiments are likely for 3 marks each. Once somewhere it is asked either this experiment or this experiment. Very easy to write the experiment. Just draw the figure and tell about the motion of the magnet or the coil and how it deflects the galvanometer. So now we shall come to the definition of what is magnetic flux, and this definition is very similar to your electric flux. It is just a revision. Those whatever terms you have in electricity, the same terms are repeated in magnetism. So there you have electric flux, here you have magnetic flux, but the definitions are one and the same. Now we shall clearly define what is magnetic flux, and we shall find out the conditions when the flux is minimum and maximum. We shall define clearly what is magnetic flux. As you know, in the first chapter, electric charges and fields, you have studied that electric field is represented by electric field lines. Similarly, a magnetic field is represented by magnetic field lines. Now, with reference to the magnetic field lines, we shall define the term magnetic flux, and we denote it by the letter phi b. Now, what is magnetic flux? Suppose you keep a surface in a magnetic field, then how many lines of magnetic lines are passing perpendicular to it? How many lines are normal to the given surface? That number is called as the magnetic flux. So I have written it here. It is the number of magnetic field lines which are normal to the given surface. Normal means they are perpendicular to the given surface. How many lines of force are normal to the given surface? That number is called as the magnetic flux. Now, as you have done for electric flux, we shall also write down an expression for magnetic flux. Now, let us say you have this given surface. This is a surface of area A and it is placed in a magnetic field B. B is the magnetic field. Now, this surface having an area A, this area A is represented by the outward normal to the surface. Normal means perpendicular. So, the area is represented along the outward normal. A is a vector quantity. B is also a vector quantity. Theta is the angle between B and A. Then how to define magnetic flux? Magnetic flux is given by B dot A. Dot stands for the dot product or the scalar product. So, the magnetic flux is the dot product of B and A. What is B? B is the magnetic field, and what is A? A is the area of the surface. So, if you take the scalar product of B and A, you get the magnetic flux to the given surface. You expand the scalar product. So, if you expand the scalar product, as you know, you will get the cosine value here. So, it will be B A cos theta. So, this is an expression for magnetic flux. Phi b is equals to B A cos theta. What are the terms over here? B is the magnetic field, A is the area, theta is the angle between B and A. Now, we shall write down the SI unit of it. So, what type of quantity is the magnetic flux? So, whenever you take dot product of two vector quantities, the resulting quantity is always a scalar quantity. Therefore, it is what type of quantity? It is a scalar quantity. And now, what is the unit of magnetic flux? So, you have to take B and A unit, take the product of it. So, it will be B is expressed in Tesla, area is expressed in meter square. So, what is the SI unit of magnetic flux? It is Tesla meter square. Another unit is also valid, that is nothing but Weber, WB, denoted as WB. So, the SI unit of magnetic flux is either you can write Tesla meter square or Weber. So, this is the definition and unit of the magnetic flux. Now, we shall find out two conditions. When is the flux maximum and when is the flux zero? That depends upon the angle theta. We shall take two different cases. We shall first take the case theta is equals to 0 degrees, and then we shall take the case theta is equals to 90 degrees. So, only thing you have to put the value of cos 0 and cos 90 degrees. So, let us take the first case. Let us put theta equals to 0 degrees. So what is the value of cos 0 now? Cos theta is cos 0. Cos 0 is equals to 1. So in this here, cos 0 becomes equals to 1. Therefore, phi b will be equals to b into a. So I have written it here. Phi b is equals to ba. And this is the maximum value of the flux. So when theta is equals to 0, then you get the maximum flux. Let us try to find out the meaning of theta equals to 0. What is theta equals to 0? This angle theta should be made equals to 0. So go on decreasing the angle and make it finally to 0. So when you make it to 0, B and A will coincide. So it is shown here. B and A are coinciding with each other. So what is the direction of A? A is normal to the surface. Therefore B also is normal to the surface. So the meaning is B is perpendicular to the given surface. So whenever B is normal, perpendicular to a given surface, then the flux becomes always maximum. Now let us come to the second case. Theta equals to 90 degrees. Find out cos of 90 degrees. Cos theta is cos of 90 degrees. Cos 90 is 0. So because cos 90 is 0, this term becomes 0. So what will be the flux? Flux will be equals to 0. So now the flux becomes equals to 0. Now let us try to analyze the meaning of theta equals to 90 degrees. So go on increasing the angle theta, make it 90 degrees. So when it becomes 90 degrees, what do you observe? The magnetic field is parallel to the given surface or along the given surface. So when the magnetic field is along the given surface, then there is no flux. So I have written it here. B is parallel to the given surface, there is no flux. So when B is perpendicular to the surface, the flux is maximum, and when B is parallel to the surface, there is no flux. So these are the two conditions based on the angle theta. So what are the points we have done for a magnetic flux? We have first defined what is magnetic flux. It is a number of magnetic field lines passing normally perpendicular to a given surface. How do you write an expression for magnetic flux? It is the dot product of B and A. B is the magnetic field, A is the area. So it is given by B A cos theta. It is a scalar quantity. SI unit, either you can write it as Tesla meter square or you can write it as Weber. Now two important cases we have studied. When is the flux maximum? Flux is maximum when B is perpendicular to the surface. When is the flux 0? When B is parallel to the given surface. So these are some points regarding the magnetic flux. So in today's session, first we started with Faraday's experiments. Two experiments we have studied. One is coil and magnet experiment, another is coil experiment, and the conclusion of Faraday's experiments results in the definition of electromagnetic induction. And now we have stated what is the magnetic flux. We have found out the expression for it, and we have written down the SI unit. We have written down two conditions. One is maxima, another is 0. So this is all for today's session. Thank you.